Welcome everybody. It's good to see you. And now we are beginning lesson 13, 5 lessons to go after this. And we will have completed Soul and its Instrument. So today, in this lesson, we'll be going over the body of knowledge and the energies from past lives. Part 1. Also in 2 weeks, we'll be going through that as well. Part 2. The problem of identity, the purpose of experience, and the goal of unity. So, become a sponge, a sponge that's just going to soak up the energy of this lesson. Close your eyes, relax, no need to go over the lesson or read it with me, no need to do that. This is a moment when you slightly detach and just allow your ears to hear and your energies, your intelligence to just, when I say intelligence, I'm not speaking strictly of mental intelligence, just your inner wisdom to just gather and soak in as much as you can without the need for memory or memorizing. Lesson 13. We come now to that part of the instrument that is somewhat difficult to consider because of the glamour attached to the subject. I am speaking anent the body of knowledge and the energies accumulated over many past incarnations. This subject, around which so much glamour has been built, must be clarified, for the past does constitute a part of the instrument through which the soul must work in its service to the plan. I have not previously brought this subject into the light in the manner that I am now undertaking, for there were not enough conscious disciples in the world who could be depended upon to hold it in that light. This condition has been somewhat changed, and today I find those disciples who can, if they so choose, act as custodians of certain information to be released to others later as time and right opportunity permit. As I release this information, I do so with the prayer that all who receive it will consciously lend their efforts to pierce the glamour of the past, and so bring about an adjustment of karma within the human family. Certain questions have been and should continue to be posed by so-called thinkers everywhere, if the darkness of ignorance is to lose its power over the human family. Some of the questions are: number 1, what is my identity? Who am I actually? This question inevitably brings into the awareness of thinkers the fact that they are self-conscious entities persisting throughout eternity. They cannot contemplate their own identities without realizing their essential divinity, the fact that they are eternal, for it is impossible to actually conceive of not being, and the fact that all other people are as they themselves are. Therefore, all people are their brothers. At the same time, they come to realize that which they are not. They are not their physical body, nor their emotions, nor even their thoughts. They recognize them as energies they have appropriated and put to use for a purpose. The purpose they recognize as being experience. And in this manner, they begin to separate themselves from the experiences they have undertaken. They no longer identify their experiences as themselves, but gradually disentangle themselves from the web of illusion that has held them prisoner for so long. They are not personalities. They are neither men nor women, male nor female. They are not a king, queen, husband, wife, shoe salesperson, business executive, what have you. They are not wealthy, poor, smart, stupid, ill, etc. They are the soul, conscious of themselves as such, and of the role they are presently playing. Their personality, their bodies, their status in life, what have you, they recognize as being a part of their experience, separate and apart from themselves. This brings them to the second question, 2. What is the purpose of all this experience? If they are not really the personality nor the vehicles of manifestation, then what is the purpose of these vehicles? The first answer they arrive at is the evolution of consciousness. That must be the reason. But then again, they become bewildered. If they, as the soul, are capable of creating these conditions, it must have been done with a knowledge of what it would lead to. If that is so, the very fact of creation presupposes an evolution of consciousness far in advance of anything they can even imagine as a goal. This line of questioning finally brings the realization that each experience they have known has been but a phase in the process of building an instrument of contact, suited for some definite purpose. Hidden within the depths of the consciousness is the objective for which they are sacrificing so much, and they know without a doubt that evolution of consciousness alone is not the answer, but only partial, in that it, too, is brought about with a larger purpose in mind. So their mind strains to find the answer to become aware of that larger purpose. And because their realization of identity is not complete, but an expanding awareness of reality, the answer comes to them in degrees. They are building an instrument through which they can carry out a definite objective. This building process has been going on over a long period of incarnations and will continue for how many more they cannot imagine. Because of the nature of the vehicles they now inhabit, they realize that the final one will be a super instrument of contact with the plane of existence upon which it is being created. Because they themselves have undertaken to imprison themselves in form or substance, and are in a process of liberation from that form, they realize that the objective is the final liberation of all consciousness from form. They involute into matter or substance, vivify and stimulate the inherent consciousness of substance itself to awareness, and with it evolve to liberation from form. This is the marriage of spirit to matter, and the consequent birth of the Son revealed. They, as pure spirit, merged with substance, and as the consciousness of both, are returning home. Beyond that, humanity's present comprehension cannot go. This much, however, does give them a realization of purpose, great enough to enable them to grasp the concept of service. Within each atom of substance is locked a unit of consciousness. As the spirit appropriates substance and takes it on as form, it is blending with that imprisoned consciousness. Its merging stimulates the consciousness to self-awareness, and thus the liberated soul is born. Meditation upon this will bring a greater realization of Christ's words, "I and my Father are one." We see then that all vehicles appropriated in past incarnations are in truth one vehicle that is in a process of construction. Each incarnation was but a step in the building process, each vehicle but a building block in the greater temple. Two ones who create, the ones who in meditation observe the carrying out of their purpose, the building blocks are not separated by time and space. To them there is no time nor space, but only the vast, manifestation of the plan. Realize now that you are not your experiences. You are not a personality, but rather an entity that is utilizing that personality as an instrument of contact with consciousness. Each experience is a part of that instrument, and when regarded as such, becomes an opportunity for service to the plan itself. I have given you much in this lesson upon which to meditate. I shall allow you time to receive and absorb the realization underlying the words before continuing. I would advise you to contemplate deeply the meaning contained in the lesson before you go on to the next one. Ask yourself the questions posed on these pages and write your own answers. Hand the paper in to your teacher before proceeding with the next lesson, and more importantly, it is important for you to journal, not hand any papers in. That's not necessary in this class. So we've gone through the lesson with you in the reception mode. So as this lesson says, it's about past lifetimes, the aspect of incarnation, okay, past incarnations, and our identity with this particular lifetime. And it's kind of teaching us how we move beyond imprisonment. And we'll talk more about that as we go along, okay? We come now to that part of the instrument that is somewhat difficult to consider because of the glamour attached to the subject. I'm speaking anent. Anent is a old word that really means about. The body of knowledge and the energies accumulated over many past incarnations. And I know this is a subject that many people love. You don't know how many people come to me and want me to talk to them about past lifetimes. Yeah. This subject, around which so much glamour has been built, must be clarified, for the past does constitute a part of the instrument through which the soul must work in its service to the plan. So it's basically saying, past incarnations, of course, are important, okay? When I work with astrology of a person in consultation, that is one of the things that I'm always looking for. What was going on in past lifetimes? What is the characteristic, the major characteristic that they exemplified, or what did they experience in past lifetimes that they're bringing into this lifetime? Are they stuck in this lifetime, or energetically are they stuck in the past? Because if they are, then there's little that they can do. They're holding themselves back from working in this particular lifetime, because this lifetime has its own particular keynote. Okay? But as it says here, the past is important, of course. It is. It's everything. From the standpoint of the soul, all lifetimes are one. Okay? Life is eternal. We talked about that, I think, the last time. I have not previously brought this subject into the light in the manner that I am now undertaking, for there were not enough conscious disciples in the world who could be depended upon to hold it in that light. Now, we have to realize that this book was written in yikes. I think back in the 40s, really. Okay? 40s, 40, 45, or sometime like that. So where we are now and when this was written, where they were, two different places. there are more people on the planet now who are aware and connected spiritually, who understand these concepts with much greater ease. So back at that time, they might have been able to say, of course, there weren't a lot of people with which they could depend upon, but that is not the case now, okay? This condition has been somewhat changed, and today I find those disciples who can, if they so choose, act as guardians of certain information to be released to others later as time and right opportunity permit. As I release this information, I do so with the prayer that all who receive it will consciously lend their efforts to pierce the glamour of the past, and so bring about an adjustment of karma within the human family. So, I mean, let's talk about it. How many times have we heard people talking about in the past they were a king or a queen, or something to that effect, okay? We have, that's the glamour he's talking about, okay? So this treatise, this lesson really is to get us beyond that sense of glamour about who we were and in the past. There's some people who astrologically are very much connected, not just through North Node, South Node, but more so they're connected also. Some of their planets are very much connected with history. Okay, and they may have a tendency to want to go back to family history, so forth and so on. Who was I in the past? And become very attached to it, I must say. Okay, certain questions have been and should continue to be posed by so-called thinkers everywhere. If the darkness of ignorance is to lose its power over the human family, some of these questions are: what is my identity? Who am I actually? This question inevitably brings into the awareness of thinkers the fact that they are self-conscious entities persisting throughout eternity. They cannot contemplate their own identities without realizing their essential divinity. The fact that they are eternal, for it is impossible to actually conceive of not being eternal, and the fact that all other people are as they themselves are. Therefore, all people are their brothers. So this kind of understanding that whether we are in incarnation or out of incarnation, life is eternal. And we use our soul, one soul, constant, dips in and out of lifetimes in order to learn, experience, grow, evolve, develop. And as a result of that, if everybody is doing that, then are we not one family? Okay? From the standpoint of the soul, if we are dealing with people, anyone, known or unknown, doesn't matter if we know them for a minute, we just met them on the street, or we've known them for 25 years or more, it does not make a difference. When we're dealing with people from the aspect of the soul, there is who they are makes no difference, right? Okay? When we're dealing with someone from the aspect of the soul, mother and father falls away, those titles fall away, child, adult fall away, nothing of that, all of these things that we have names for and divisions in our mind for fall away. From the aspect of the soul, we are one. Okay? At the same time, they come to realize that, which they are not. They are not their physical body, nor their emotions, nor their thoughts even. They recognize them as energies they have appropriated and put to use for a purpose. So every time we come into incarnation, we pick up where we left off, so to speak. Okay? So whatever it is we've learned from a past lifetime is kind of, how do I say this, for the lack of, almost like it's captured and incubated for a period of time. Okay? That which we've learned on an emotional level, that which we've learned on a mental level, that which we've learned on a physical level. Okay? They call them permanent atoms. And we are, all of them are held and kind of held for a period of time while we are abstracted from the physical body. And in that there's a whole teachings, there's a whole body of teachings on the death process, what happens not only during the death process, but after death, that are available and really must be known. You know, maybe that's something we'll go into next time. Good point. Because they're held in suspension until you come back in. And then when you come back in, you pick up those same atoms, permanent atoms, and you start where you left off. Which is why you might have children who come in like a Mozart and have, they're phenoms. Okay? They have that ability to, because they've learned it from past lifetimes. Okay? It's something that they've been working on. And they recapitulate. It's called recapitulation. It's like they're working out from their birth, whatever it was that they were from past lifetimes. And many of them hold it very strongly. Many can hold it very strongly for a long period of time. And then all of a sudden they begin to work on this lifetime. But they bring talents, gifts, weaknesses, everything that we have stored up from a past lifetime, we bring into this one. Gifts, weaknesses, talents, you name it. Okay? Abilities. At the same time, they come to realize that which they are not. Okay? So we know that we're not our emotions, we're not our thoughts. They recognize them as energies they've appropriated and put to use for a purpose. The purpose they recognize as being experience. And in this manner, they begin to separate themselves from the experiences they've undertaken. They no longer identify their experiences as themselves, but gradually disentangle themselves from the web of illusion that has held them prisoner for so long. They're not personalities. They're neither men nor women, male nor female. They're not king, queen, husband, wife, salesperson, business executive. They're not wealthy, poor, smart, stupid, physically challenged, ill, whatever. They are the soul, conscious of themselves as such, and of the role they are presently playing. Their personality, their bodies, their status in life, everything, what have you, they recognize as being a part of their experience, and as such, separate and apart from themselves. This brings them to the second question. Number 2. What's the purpose of all this experience? If they're not really the personality nor the vehicles of manifestation, then what is the purpose of these vehicles? So there's a lot being said here, okay? I remember early on when I was studying meditation, and this came up. You are not your mind. You're not your emotions. You're not your physical body, okay? How important that struck me, and the process of detaching from each one, what it felt like. It was truly a sense of liberation, in truth, to realize that I didn't have to attach myself to any of that, okay? That I was more than that, that we are more than that, okay? But as we come into evolution, I mean, as we incarnate, we see the wisdom inherent in new life of a baby through their eyes, okay? We see it. It's right there. I mean, and you can speak to that baby from soul to soul. And that brand new being. And if you speak to them from that place, even though the sense of language may not be there, they will recognize. You can see the recognition in their eyes, okay? You can sense the energy. You can connect with that wisdom, in essence, okay? We have the ability. And we have the ability to connect with this wisdom. And it doesn't take long, you know. You can see it in the eyes. You can see it over the years begin to fade. You can sense that because now we're more attached to this time and space and what's happening here. And we lose that connection. Yet that connection is what we seek to reestablish as we distance ourselves from with sentences like this. I am not my physical. I am not my emotions. I am not my mental. I'm not my thoughts, okay? So that in itself, what it is we come in learning, we have to unlearn. That's the imprisonment, okay? That is the imprisonment. Yes, we learn many things, but we become conditioned. And anyone who is going through, especially this period of time that we are in right now, how much are we learning that what we have been learning all this time has not been true? Okay? We're seeing it everywhere. Whether it has to do with You name it. You name it. Everything that has ever been a statute in our lives is now beginning to crumble. And we're seeing that behind the crumbling, there's something else. Okay? There's a truth that we never connected with because we bought what it is we were told, hook, line, and sinker. Unless we were listening. Okay? My father was a Methodist minister. We were in church every Sunday as a child. He was a good minister, too. He was really good at his craft. Excellent storyteller. But there is me, this little me sitting in the church pews, would listen to these stories or the readings in the Bible, and there were things that I would say, yeah, that feels right. No, I'm sorry, I'm not buying that one. As a child, I would do that. That doesn't feel like it's correct. I don't know about that one. But this, yeah, that feels right. I could feel that in my being, the things I could feel. But there were other things that just felt, nah, that's a story. And now we find out that how much of the Bible was just rewritten, things taken out, because they didn't want people to know truths, and then the people who were writing them or the versions that were being written, I mean, if you look into the history of some of these people, they should never have been doing what they were doing. So a lot of things that we have been taught, we are having to unlearn. Even about our parents. Even about, there's so many things. Religion, you name it, education, you name it. We're seeing it right now in the political stage. Lies everywhere. So, going on.
Can I ask something now?
Sure.
Um, I mean, this knowledge has been around forever, like ever since human figured out that being human is not just being human, and ever since that, somebody had the capacity to look at their own mind and realize what they are. This knowledge has been out, and people know this, but they are actually trying to suppress other people. They know that they are other people are themselves, but why do they do that? Like I see, in politics, in a lot of, you know, I don't want to name them, but they actually know the truth and they don't do anything about it, and they just uh, attach to their own life and their bloodlines.
Belief
Yeah.
systems and so forth and so on.
And
Yes.
why is that? I wonder.
It's okay on this stage of life on this particular planet. I don't think it's on every planet, but this particular planet, there's the aspect of duality, right? Um, we are constantly given the opportunity to choose. That is one of the gifts of humanity, the ability to choose. Animal kingdom, not necessarily, no, they can't choose. They choose, but it's not conscious necessarily choice. I'm going to do this because boom, okay? But we have the ability to choose. So as a result, we are thrown at that. What is thrown at us all the time through experience is that ability to discriminate, to be decisive, to sense, to know, to be able to register truth from untruth. Okay? It's part of the aspect of experiencing and learning. Okay? So that we can go on, number one, evolve, develop, and go on and carry that wisdom, really move us from the aspect of the path of experience into the path of initiation and wisdom. Okay? On this particular stage, when we come in for years and years and years and years, 30, 40, 50, it all depends on the person and the evolution of the person, many of us are going through the path of experience, which means that things hit us left and right. We have no idea as to, we're not sensing patterns. We're not sensing, because what happens in our life is an outpicturing of what's going on inside of us, correct?
Exactly.
Okay? So if we know that, or when we catch on to that, let's put it that way, when we catch on to that, that's when we begin to start connecting dots and realizing there are patterns in things. If I do this, this is going to happen. We begin to understand karma, so forth and so on. Before that, we're just kind of like a ball bouncing around in the ocean. Things are happening and we don't get it.
Yeah, you're just responding before that.
Exactly. We're reacting
Yeah.
to everything without consciousness. But at some point in time, consciousness kicks in and we begin to say, wait a minute. Put two and two together. When I do this, this happens. Now I'm no longer going to do that anymore. That is a step forward in one's evolutionary trajectory. That's a step forward. Okay? So, and then we keep doing that and doing it again. The minute we start to do that, we are really moving away from the path of experience onto the path of initiation. Okay? And at some point in time, we want more of that. We begin to sense in that we realize that we're not the personality. Then we begin to ask the deeper questions. Then who am I? What is this about? So forth and so on. And that's when we're beginning to walk the path of initiation. And that is also when, if we're listening consistently, our soul begins to focus on its instrument, its vehicle. Okay? That's when, because it realizes, because we start wanting more. And we start, we start communicating from a different place. We start meditating. We start disciplining ourselves. We start building character. Okay? We start working on integrity. We start realizing that what comes out of my mouth and what I think I need to be careful about. We start constructing who we are on a different level. Okay? And when that happens, that's when the soul starts to recognize, now I can pay attention to my instrument, and it begins the process over a long period of time that can take incarnations. Okay? Of soul mergence, where all of a sudden the soul can now control the mental body, the astral body, and the physical body. Okay? What this lesson really is about is something called integration. Okay? Integration. It's about, which goes on for incarnations. It's about preparing the persona to connect, to be able, or to be, to connect with the soul. And it's really more so the other way around. It's preparing the persona so that the soul will connect with it. That's what it is, okay? Because when the inner work has been done, the soul begins to get approximate, they call it approximation, begins to get closer and closer and to begin to embody this thing that we have known as the personality. Okay, it takes control of the personality. Okay, that's what's happening. Does that answer your question? You sure?
Yes. Yeah.
Number 2, what is the purpose of all this experience? If they are not really the personality nor the vehicles of manifestation, then what is the purpose of these vehicles? The first answer they arrive at is the evolution of consciousness. They must be the reason. That must be the reason. But then again, they become bewildered. If they, as the soul, are capable of creating these conditions, it must have been done with a knowledge of what it would lead to. These conditions we're talking about. If that is so, the very fact of creation presupposes an evolution of consciousness far in advance of anything they even imagine as a goal. So, we're wondering, the question is, what is the purpose of all this experience? So, the purpose of all the experience, bottom line, is evolution. Okay? You know, we talk about the one and the many. And that the divine is experiencing through the many, which is why we each carry the divine spark. Okay, that monad, that which is beyond the soul, that we are seeking to connect with. But we have to connect first and foremost with the soul. We each are a divine spark. And through us, that divine spark is experiencing, okay, all that we experience. The good, the bad, the ugly. All of it is, okay? And, yikes, those that are world servers, those who know that they're on the path of initiation and dedicated to the divine plan and understand that we are souls and see each other as brothers and sisters, are working to be bridgers, so to speak. Yeah, they're working to be bridgers, to be able to assist in this process of helping all of humanity to understand and evolve in a deeper way. So, right now, as I've taught in creative thinking, and probably early on in this course, you know, what is happening right now, the oversoul of humanity is seeking to seat itself within humanity. We have been personality conscious for such a long period of time. We have been on an emotional level for such a long period of time. Now things are shifting and we're becoming more mental collectively. We're waking up. We're realizing we're waking up from this dream that we've been in for a long period, is sleep really, that we've been in for a long period of time. And we're realizing that there is more. We're realizing our connection to the more, many of us, more and more of us, and there are more world servers on the planet now than ever before. So that aspect of soul consciousness is extremely important right now, and every last one of you are important in that process. Okay? You're not learning this just for yourself. You're learning this for the group, to help the group grow fast. And consciousness of humanity is growing faster than it has ever grown before, which is why so much is happening right now. Okay? So much can happen right now. So none of this is happenstance at all. Now their mind strains to find the answer, to become aware of that larger purpose, and because their realization of identity is not complete, but an expanding awareness of reality, the answer comes to them in degrees. They are building an instrument through which they can carry out a definite objective. This building process has been going on over a long period of incarnations, and will continue for how many more they cannot imagine. You know, the quantity is unimportant. The quality is. Because of the nature of the vehicles they now inhabit, they realize that the final one will be a super instrument of contact with the plane of existence upon which it is being created. I can't even imagine final one. Okay? Because they themselves have undertaken to imprison themselves in form or substance, and are in a process of liberation from that form, they realize that the objective is the final liberation of all consciousness from form. As I spoke before, this aspect of what this is talking about is just a tip of the iceberg of what integration is all about. As I said, the aspect of integration goes on for lifetimes. It's deep and wide. It cannot be understood in a snapshot. Okay? But if I was to try to break it down, it's the aspect of the integration, the integration of the physical, astral, and mental bodies, that which we have called, what we call the three lower worlds, that which we have called the personality for such a long period of time, that through character building, dispassion, detachment, and discrimination, we almost begin to put these three bodies, our awareness, our attachments to things, our sacred cows, so to speak, we put them through a sieve. And we commit ourselves to the divine plan, number one. And what that means, as we evolve from incarnation to incarnation, grows in depth. So it may mean, in this present incarnation, maybe I begin to detach from people who no longer hold a particular frequency that I need to be experiencing anymore. I want to make sure that what it is I live and who it is I attract is of a particular frequency that no longer does certain things or acts in certain ways or whatever, okay? It may mean that you become really conscious of what it is you eat. You become dedicated to your meditation, which means that you don't skip a day. You know, you have to be practically on the deathbed for you to skip a day, okay? It means that you're extremely conscious about what comes out of your mouth. And it also means that there are a lot of things that go into it. You begin to magnetize to yourself the experiences that you seek. You begin to detach from emotional involvement, meaning it's not that you don't care, but you realize that the astral is designed to suck us into things that we really don't need to be attached to. Okay? So, aware of that and that it can pull you off your focus. And becoming aware of that, you become determined that nothing is going to pull you off your focus. Not news, not child, husband, brother, sister, mother, father. Nothing is going to pull you off your focus. Okay? And as a result of that level of commitment, clarity, consciousness, focus, who you are begins to change. You are holding a different frequency and you are in command of it. A mountain could fall and you take note. Okay? People think it's impossible. Yes. We think it's impossible, but it's possible. It is so important a teaching that Alice Bailey dedicates almost 370 some pages to it in one book. And you can still find it in all of the rest of the books. Okay? That's how important it is. So it's a life focus, spiritual focus that connects you absolutely vertically to the one, and you live from that source. That's integration. Okay? And as I said, it begins to augment itself from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. Okay? I can't even verbalize it because although I'm beginning to understand it, and I'm overwhelmed, to tell you the honest God's truth, at the depth of it. Because I'm realizing that, wow, there's a whole list of things that I need to begin to start scratching off that I've allowed to become important in my life that no longer are, should no longer be, if that is the connection. So you begin to, over time, detach from what you thought was important in life and attach to something else. Okay? Integration. That's what this is really talking about in a very simplistic way, and yet a very deep way at the same time. It's both. So they're building an instrument through which they can carry out a definite objective. The building process has been going on forever. And they realize that the final one will be a super instrument of contact with the plane of existence upon which it is being created, because they themselves have undertaken to imprison themselves in form. So all of these things that we attach ourselves to, think about it. Weigh it in your mind. How much is this imprisoning me? Ask the question. Is this a form of imprisonment? Is my attachment to this a form of imprisonment? Okay. I used to have 2 dogs, 2 cotons, coton de Tulear. Lovely little dogs, gorgeous. White little fluffy things. I love them to death, okay? They were my teacher's dogs originally. She wanted them. She got them. But she wanted me to be the mother. And I love animals. I inherently have a weak spot in my being for animals. And before I knew it, anywhere I went, these little fluffy things were following me around, okay? And when she noticed that, she was gleeful. She was happy. She was like, because she was not going to get up and walk these dogs, okay? I was the one. And my, we had sisters and brothers in the ashram, so to speak, who would help out on occasion, but primarily it was my job and my housemate's job, Adana's job. And when she passed away, my housemate and I, we were both students of her, decided that we would live together because we worked together in the office with her. We were one of the closest ones to her, or 2 of the closest ones to her. And then we moved, and of course, the little babies came with us. But I'm going to tell you, as much as I loved them, I realized that they were an imprisonment, because I could not leave the house and be free. Every time I walked out of that house, my brain was, okay, it's X o'clock. I'm going to need to be back here by such and such a time to walk the dogs, feed the dogs, whatever. Okay, the dogs were the thing. God forbid I went out and stayed 5 hours. I was panicking inside. Okay, because I didn't want the babies to be alone. I didn't want them worrying. I didn't want them doing their business in the house. So imprisonment. And I think I mentioned it. I don't know if I mentioned it last time or not. I knew in this lifetime that I wasn't going to have kids. I knew I wasn't getting married, because that to me was like lockdown. Okay? And I knew I would not be happy. 1, and number 2, I knew that there was something more for me to do. And all of that was focused totally on the spiritual level. And I could not be locked down. I did not want to be locked down. I never felt badly about making those decisions. Until once. And that was when my father passed away. That's when it kind of hit me, okay? But by that time, I was definitely beyond the age. Okay, and I would not have done it anyway. You know, it was like a moment that it was a flashing moment. And then I would have taken this. My soul would have taken my neck and said, "Are you crazy? Cut it out." You know, I just knew it was not for me. I knew it was not for me. Not in this lifetime, because my sense was I've done it enough in past lifetimes. So, the involute into matter, meaning involution. Involution is when we dive into matter and we forget who we are. Evolution is when we begin to turn that arc, move upward in that arc and begin to remember. And we are moving upward to connect with the one. Okay? So the involute into matter or substance vivify and stimulate the inherent consciousness of substance itself into awareness. And with it, evolve to liberation from form. Thus is the marriage of spirit to matter and the consequent birth of the sun revealed. Thus is the marriage of spirit to matter and the consequent birth of the sun. The sun is the soul, aspect of the soul, okay? It's the inner Christ, the Christ within, okay? And usually they capitalize it. Well, they've capitalized all of them. Spirit to matter. And we talked about that last time, if I remember correctly. We talked about when spirit impresses matter, it activates matter, which before that impress from spirit lies inert. Okay? Matter lies inert. It just sits there. Substance. But the minute it's impressed by will, power, purpose, divine will, power, and purpose, and even that which is not necessarily divine, it can be our own will, power, and purpose, which is why so much of what we create sometimes is just not what we thought we were going to create. Let's put it that way. But spirit activates matter once it's impressed. And it creates a magnetic field between spirit and matter, which is consciousness, soul. Okay? That's why I said consequent birth of the sun revealed. They, as pure spirit, merged with substance, and as the consciousness of both, are returning home. Beyond that, humanity's present comprehension cannot go. This much, however, does give them a realization of purpose, great enough to enable them to grasp the concept of service. Within each atom of substance, are there any questions about that passage that I need? Any? Beyond that, humanity's present comprehension cannot go. This much, however, does give them a realization of purpose great enough to enable them to grasp the concept of service. There we go. The purpose of all of this, really, is for us as world servers, or even just human beings, to realize that we are here to be of service to others. That's the point of everything. Okay? Service to humanity, group conscious, no longer focused on I-ness. That's the purpose. Within each atom of substance is locked a unit of consciousness. As the spirit appropriates substance, as the spirit impresses substance, or begins to take over substance, it takes it on as form. It is blending with that imprisoned consciousness. Its merging stimulates the consciousness to self-awareness, and thus the liberated soul is born. That's how we grow, in a nutshell. Okay? Pure and simple. It's stated right there. It's amazing how they can say something so deep with so few words. Okay? It is blending with that imprisoned consciousness. Its merging stimulates the consciousness to self-awareness, and thus the liberated soul is born. Again, this takes incarnations. Meditation upon this will bring a greater realization of Christ's words. I and my Father are one. Okay? I and my Father are one. So when you are embodying that level of frequency, and you are holding that note with perseverance, dedication, integrity, discrimination, dispassion, detachment, among other things, the vibration that you hold is in total alignment with the divine, the one reality. It's in total alignment, so that frequency is in harmony with. It is, as a matter of fact, it begins to become identical to. Okay? Based on the level of evolution that one is carrying. I and my Father are one. He could state that quite easily. We see then that all vehicles appropriated in past incarnation, all vehicles, all physical bodies appropriated that were taken over in past incarnations are in truth one vehicle that is in a process of construction. Wow. That's powerful. That's very powerful. Remember I said the oversoul of humanity is seeking to seat itself within the collective. Right now, that's what's happening. That's why there's so much, because the planet is undergoing a major initiation. We are part of the planet, part of the 5 kingdoms of the planet. 5th kingdom is being birthed right now, midwifed right now. So we are part of that planet. That means that once the planet, that means that everything within the planet undergoes that level of initiation. And we're moving from emotional polarization into mental polarization. Each incarnation has but a step in the building process. Each vehicle but a building block in the greater temple. Wow. Beautiful. Well said. So each incarnation is a stepping stone, so to speak. Okay? Ashlar. Right. Particular stone, the stone that's part of the temple, that builds the temple. It's a particular, yeah. So each vehicle is but a building block in the greater temple of the divine. To ones who create, the ones who in meditation observe the carrying out of their purpose, The building blocks are not separated by time and space. To them there is no time nor space, but only the vast manifestation of the plan. Realize now that you are not your experiences. You are not a personality, but rather an entity that is utilizing that personality as an instrument of contact with consciousness. Each experience is a part of that instrument. And when regarded as such, becomes an opportunity for service to the plan itself. And how does that happen? So if you remember, maybe as a result or the teachings of creative thinking, every experience that we go through, good, bad, well, the ones that really move us and we pay attention to are the ones that kick us in the rump, so to speak, okay? You know, the ones that bring us down to our knees. The ones that have us calling out to the divine, help me, okay? Which is happening a lot right now. People being kidnapped off the streets and packed into rooms like sardines. Cleanliness, food, all of that out the window. Chained to each other. What kind of reality is this that we're experiencing? What kind of reality? So it's causing a collective, invocative cry to the divine for assistance that needs to even get stronger than it is in order to get the reaction that's necessary. Okay? It's leveled the haves and the have-nots, so to speak. Okay? People who thought they had, people who thought they were people of comfort, people who yeah, it's leveled the playing ground, so to speak, because even they have found that they are now in need of jobs. Okay, unless you're part of the 1%. So now, there is a greater understanding about racism than ever before. There's greater, so it's leveling the playing ground, so to speak. Those who thought they were different now are realizing we are all in the same boat. Okay? Each experience is a part of that instrument, and when regarded as such, becomes an opportunity for service to the plan itself. So there is a need for us to experience this level of discomfort, disenfranchisement, throwing us all in the same kind of boat, so to speak, for all of humanity. And now it's reached beyond the borders of the United States itself, okay? And it's touching all of the countries. What's happening here as a result is touching. So it's a situation where everyone is screaming, so to speak, okay? Everyone is unsettled. Everyone is unhappy. Everyone is frightened. Everyone is concerned. That in itself should cause an invocative appeal, a cry out by the masses to the divine for assistance. At such a level that it requires an evocative response. Invocative, evocative. So that's what, to me, this is speaking of. Each experience on a grand scale, really, is a part of that instrument, and when regarded as such, becomes an opportunity for service to the plan itself. The service needed to the plan itself right now is that call that is going to move us into the Aquarian age, because all of this that's happening right now is a destruction on purpose of all that was Piscean age. Moving it out so that the Aquarian age can come in and be built, because we can't build it on top of the old. It has to be swept away. Okay? So in a sense, we have to realize that what we're seeing, as egregious as it is part of the plan. Okay? It is part of the plan. And from the standpoint of the other side that watches, okay, from the standpoint of the soul, from the standpoint of the divine, as hard as it is for me to say, they don't get choked up about loss of life as we do, because life is eternal. And when you realize that, war, genocide, slavery, all of it, what those ladies experienced in the Epstein saga, all of it is an aspect of learning and experience necessary for the soul in order for it not to come back and do the same thing all over again. Okay? I know it's hard as heck to hear that. And it's hard for me to, I mean, even war is known as purposeful. So we have to realize that beyond whatever it is we're seeing on the stage, there's always, on the political stage, whatever life stage, there's always an aspect of the divine plan reigns. Okay? We may not understand it. We may never think we'll understand it. But from this window, from the window that our point of view here. But when you get on the opposite side, and if you kind of take ourselves away from these attachments that we have, and try to look at it from an eagle's point of view, you know, from the large eye, with the eagle eye, we can see it from a totally different standpoint. Okay? We may not like it. You know, look what happened in COVID. Look what happened in COVID. My God. You know, family loss, all kinds of, and they couldn't even handle, death became it was like stacked up bodies in places that, it was just insanity from ours, based on what it is we know and how things should go, have gone. Okay? But from the other side, there's a purpose. There's always purpose. That's the hardest thing for me to say. I don't like saying it, to tell you the truth. I have given you much in this lesson upon which to meditate. I shall allow you time to receive and absorb the realization underlying the words before continuing. I would advise you to contemplate deeply the meaning contained in the lesson before you go on to the next one. Ask yourself the questions posed on these pages and write your answers in your own journals for your own purpose. And now we'll take a moment to meditate, a brief meditation. And this meditation is called Recognizing the Opportunity to Serve. So I ask that you prepare for meditation by sitting up straight, or if you're in tailor fashion or legs crossed, whatever, make sure your spine is straight. Ideally, not laying down. And close your eyes. And take a deep breath. And as you release it, move your awareness back into the Ajna center as we did earlier when we started. 2 to 3 inches beyond the forehead or outside of the forehead. And like we did before, integrate the threefold persona, the body, the emotions, and the mind, into a single unit within the Ajna center, in aspiration to the overshadowing soul. It'll take a few minutes for you to do that. And become aware of yourself as the soul in the Ajna. And as the soul in the Ajna, turn your gaze back to the small golden sun in the center of the head. And move into that small golden sun, radiant, pulsing, alive. As the soul in the center of the head, gaze outward to the Ajna, just looking, and downward in frequency to and through that Ajna center, to a recent experience that you've had. And as the soul, as you're gazing, take time to select the experience. Know which one you want to focus on. It can be positive or negative. It does not request it be either. And as the soul audibly sound the seed thought that I will now say. So as I'm saying it audibly as the soul, state these words. Through this experience, I know, understand, and serve humanity and the one life. I am that life. Release all attachment to that experience. And standing receptive to its potential for service. Audibly sound the Om. Take a deep breath, and as you release it, slowly relax the attention and return to normal focus. So this meditation, when you hopefully continue to do this meditation over the next 2 weeks, when you sound that seed thought, stay quiet and still for as long as you can. I would say 2 to 3 minutes. And allow the information or the wisdom behind that experience come to you. And when you begin to see things from a different perspective in that 2 to 3 minute period of time, after the meditation, after you've sounded the Om, and you've taken that deep breath and released it, take a moment to jot down your understandings. Okay? It's going to bring things up. Take a moment to jot it down, and every day something different should happen. Different insights should come. You can stay on that one experience if you prefer, or you can change it, of course, to something else, okay? Any questions?
No questions, but I say this all the time, but this was a really powerful lesson tonight, and I really loved it. I'm sure everyone else did too, but I did. So thank you.
Thank you,
It was
Jane.
amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Jane. I'm really glad you're here. Your
Thank
spirit
you.
is here, okay? Um, okay, if there are no other questions or statements, um, then we will practice this meditation, and it will be in the video without fail. Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.